What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Nick Silveri with Leverage Media, and welcome to another episode of Path to a Million podcast. I'm here with one of my favorite past guests and a good buddy of mine, Dr. Cory Frogley with BlueIQ. Dr. Cory, say hello to the people.
Hey. So good to be here with you, Nick.
Awesome. I appreciate your time. I'm excited because I am going to be speaking at an event that Cory's got coming up called IQ Accelerator Live. That is April 29th and 30th in Las Vegas. And we are going to be talking all things marketing, all things tracking, all things ROI. Like, how do we actually turn marketing into practice growth? So, Cory, tell us a little bit about the event, and then I want to get into just kind of picking your brain on some success principles.
Heck yeah. Yeah, so this is an exciting event because BlueIQ was really founded with this concept of running your practice by the numbers. I think we all kind of know we need to do that. We're out there grinding every day to help doctors master that principle, running their practice by the numbers. But we added IQ to the BlueIQ because it's that knowledge base of how do I, now that I know my numbers, how do I improve my numbers?
Right.
And so we've really just enjoyed our annual IQ Accelerator Live event where we're showing a piece of the practice of how to really master those numbers. And then we bring in experts like you who know how to actually move those numbers. The IQ stands for the talent, the know-how, the grit to go get it done. And so it's pretty cool, man. Docs bring their teams and they learn from expert speakers like you now. Here's the data. Here's what you do. Here's how you improve the outcomes. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, like, I'm sure I've talked a lot about BlueIQ on conversations with you, but also I just mentioned it just in other conversations. But, I've been using it. We met at an event, like you were a speaker at an event. And we met at that maybe like 3 years ago. And I've been using it ever since, especially somebody who manages their practice remotely. It has just been such a game changer for me. But the thing that I really like about how you do things is it's not just a software program, but you're an expert. You have built a huge, successful, multidisciplinary practice. And so you're a really good teacher of how to not just utilize the software, but how to use growth hacks outside of just the software to build the practice. So I think that's what you deal with a lot in these live events, and so that I'm looking forward. This is my first one, so I'm looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, heck yeah! Excited to have you there.
Yeah.
I think like with a lot of your listeners. Like you said, I've been there, done that. I know what it's like to have one employee and everything's on your plate. Everything depends on you. And being, really lucky to be raised in a chiropractic family, have 6 older brothers, 5 of them were chiropractors. My dad was a chiropractor. It wasn't really till I got into the profession and I got really clear on what I wanted. And it was different than what some of my other siblings had built, which was a practice where if you go on vacation, the cash flow stops. I wanted to build a practice that wasn't solely dependent upon me, that I had other providers, that I had other service centers, profit centers. But as I started building that so that I could go, to my son's basketball game or go on vacation and not stress about that faucet of cash flow being turned off, we started doing what a lot of practices do. We started building complex spreadsheets. We started trying to gather the data so that we could make better decisions and have optics on our operations.
Yeah.
But man, that took a lot of time. Like I was having team members spending hours a week gathering data so that we could have those optics. And I think that's really the epiphany that I had. Now, gosh, it's been 8 years since I pivoted to really building this because, I grew a team of 40 employees, and that my business partner and I were able to do that, but we quickly realized that the same principles that got us from 1 employee to 5 employees, 5 employees to 10 employees, it was the same principles. And it all kind of led back to data, like getting the team members to know their numbers, so they start thinking strategically in the process. And I really think that was the big epiphany that kind of ignited my passion to bring BlueIQ to the chiropractic world.
Well, I can't say enough about the software. I think it's a game changer for all practices. But let's get into some things that the listeners can do to really help grow their practices. So I wanted to kind of cover a few different things in this call. One is I want to know, I hear a lot of people that say, oh, I doubled my practice or I quadrupled my practice. But it's like, are you going from $25,000 in collections to $75,000 in collections, like in a year? I want to know, like, for those established practices, the ones that the people that you mostly work with are ones that have kind of made it through those first rounds of growth and are in that more established, mature section of their or season of their practice.
Yeah.
Those people that are like 500,000 and above, the ones that you've seen say double their practice, what are the 3 things that they've done that have kind of gotten them from that plateau to really accelerated growth?
Yeah, that's the world I live in. I get really excited about that because, like you said, getting from 25 to 50, that should just happen.
Right.
And I was seeing so many of our chiropractors really hitting a glass ceiling just below the $1 million mark and having a hard time getting past that. Mm-hmm. So one of my favorite books out there that I'm sure a lot of you have read, Jim Collins' Good to Great, I knew it had to do with getting the right people in the right seats. And what I really geeked out over was connecting the team members' performance to why I hired them. Like, what's the product of why I hired them? And then automating, right, the incentivification process around it. And there's a lot to be said, like Pavlov's dogs, right? We know their dopamine release when there's reward. Mm-hmm. So how could I condition a team member to trigger a little dopamine release every time they did something well? Well, that came down to breaking the monthly goal down to a weekly goal, down to a daily goal, and getting just really clear with that team member on who they were. Like, what's your superpower? Why are you here in our organization? And if you master this skill set, I got really tired of having like jack of all trades, masters of none. Mm-hmm. I kind of went away from let's cross train everybody to do everything. Yeah. And I got laser specific on, I hired you to do this one thing. Mm-hmm. Another great book, right? The One Thing. Yeah. And when we connected that to the data that they were producing by doing that one thing so that they could watch their growth, their contribution, their mistakes, identify the skill that needs to be trained to improve that performance, that's really what changed everything. And one of our docs, Dr. Prax, he was at our event last year, hitting that glass ceiling on $720,000 a year. But that's not the sad part, Nick. Him and his wife had built some real estate investing that was cash flowing. And after being in practice for 23 years, at the end of the year, they would go to pay out their end of year bonus because they wanted to bonus their team. And they were literally having to borrow cash from the real estate investments to pay the team bonuses in the practice. Oh, wow. So why was that happening? Why were they trying to incentivize their team? Why weren't the incentivifications working, for one? Mm-hmm. Like, we had to fix that. So he came to our event last year. Our event last year was focused on what I talk about is another lesser known book that Jim Collins wrote called The Flywheel. Mm-hmm. The flywheel effect breaks down exactly what Dr. Prax hadn't been able to build. And that's the flywheel. And in a practice, we break down the flywheel into attraction, conversion, fulfillment, and then retain and refer.
Yeah.
So if you think about that as a circle, if a practice is struggling, you need a diagnostic tool to show me where the broken down system is. So last year, they discovered that they were getting a ton of leads, like attraction wasn't the problem. But they were having tons of scheduled new patients that wouldn't show up. In fact, 52% show up rate.
Wow.
That means half the patients that were scheduling weren't even showing up.
Yeah.
And so they had all these holes in the week where we have zero production, zero value of services being delivered.
Yeah.
That's like walking up to bat in a baseball game,
Mm-hmm.
and half of the times you get up to bat, they don't even pitch to you.
Yeah.
You don't even have an opportunity.
Right.
So your batting percentage sucks. So we fixed that. He fixed that by getting laser specific on the team member that would show up every day to move one conversion metric forward, which was take a lead and increase conversion to show up as a new patient.
Yeah.
He took it from 52% to 78% in the first 90 days.
Wow.
Didn't change any other lever. They just changed that one. Then they picked the next lever that wasn't converting, and then the next lever, right? They got the flywheel moving and turning, and with every rotation, right? It was a little rough in the beginning. There was a lot of shaking and vibration, but they smoothed those things out with proper processes and systems. And it's unbelievable. They just did 1.4 million in 1 year since that event. They doubled their collections, and not by working harder. They just worked smarter.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this, last year, we finally got in place, maybe it was more than a year ago, but we finally got into place all of those steps. So now we're able to track the lead comes in, or they schedule the appointment. How many of those appointments make it in for day one? How many of the day ones make it in for day two?
Yep.
And then what happens on day two? Do they sign up for a care plan? Do they do pay as you go? Do they say no? And now that I have those, and now that we're tracking that because we have the codes set up in Chiropractic, now that we have that, all I have to do is look at, I've got a chiropractic dashboard, and then I have a dashboard for each of my doctors. And I can look at those dashboards and I can set it for any amount of time. And I can quickly look to see where are the holes. Like if we aren't growing, what is the problem? Is it a conversion rate problem? Is it a PVA problem? Are they not coming back from day one to day two? So then when we have our quarterly meetings, I'm not like, these aren't stories that we're telling each other. Like I'm just pointing to the data, and it just is what it is. And especially when you have multiple providers, when one is doing much better than the other, it's very obvious, and it creates like a competitive situation, which is always nice. But if you don't have that data, you can't even show it to them.
Absolutely.
So anyway,
it's just like a patient. If you don't have some sort of diagnostics to show them of where we found their dysfunction, how do you justify the treatment plan?
Right. Yeah. So the first tip is really having the right people in place, making sure that they focus in on one thing that they're responsible for. Hopefully that it fits with their personality and their superpowers. And then making sure that you match up those metrics with that person. So go ahead.
My brain's going here. I get excited about this because I see some of the biggest mistakes practices make. And think about this for a second. Smaller practices typically have one front desk team member. Mm-hmm. And that front desk team member is amazing. I mean, they have 12 arms because they're doing so many things. But it's a different personality, Nick, from managing patients and care plans versus qualifying new patients to come into the practice and completing the steps that we now know need to be completed to increase that show rate. And at the summit, we're actually going to show you the difference between those personalities and what happens when you get the right personality, and what that personality trait is that if you have the new patient system and the established patient system separated with the right personalities managing those two systems, with the right metrics that they're tracking, it will, and there's a big reason why we're seeing practices double, because they get it. They see the data, they get the right personality in place, and everything explodes from there.
Awesome. Give me the second one. What do you think the second most important strategy is for being able to really grow through those plateaus?
Yeah, great question. I see a lot of practices who are just unclear on, don't get me wrong, I love chiropractic care, and I was so excited about being able to treat everybody and everything, right? Everybody should be under chiropractic care, and that was my mantra coming into this profession. And I had incredible experiences from treating newborns to the elderly and everything in between. But what really exploded my own practice, and now many of the practices we work with, is getting really clear on what is that new patient persona that you're attracting. You look at the medical model, and we don't love how compartmentalized it is. But I'll tell you one thing they got right is that you look at the income of a GP compared to the income of a specialist, a heart surgeon or an orthopedist, a rheumatologist. They make anywhere from 2 to 4 times the income that a GP makes. So I didn't want to break my philosophy, right? I wanted to be able to serve anybody and everybody who has a spine, but I had to build a different mechanism in my practice to both unlock the type of cash flow I knew we were capable of, and also serve that general population. And when we took our marketing, and I sat down, and even the conversations I've had with you, Nick, have been amazing, and understanding content marketing and how using tools like you've built to educate a patient, to bring in a patient who, before they even show up in the practice, they already start to know you, they start to like you, they start to trust you. That trust factor was so big. So we built a mechanism, a marketing mechanism, to start attracting higher value patients. Now, what do I mean by higher value patients? Everybody has a spine, right? They all should have the same value. Well, it was the patients that were more broken. And I had specific conditions that I knew I could crush it if we got these very specific conditions in the practice. So we started building content marketing around that. And then we built a conversion mechanism in place that moved them through phases of care into now lifestyle wellness. So we attracted them through the condition, we moved them into true healthcare, which I believe chiropractors still have the best healthcare philosophy on the planet.
I think that is a misunderstood piece of practice, in that chiropractors sometimes, they either want to be in one or the other. Either like anybody with a spine and a heartbeat is a potential patient, and then there's, I only want to see, neuropathy patients, or I only want to see pregnancy patients or babies or whatever it might be. And I've always been of the mind that the general public will come along when you are seen as an expert in an area that you're really passionate about. And if you focus your content, if you focus your energy on speaking to the thing that you want to help with, those people have their little sphere of influence of, maybe 20 people locally that they can recommend you to. And if you help them, even though, that person may have come in for low back pain during their 3rd trimester, they've got somebody at work that has migraines, that is not pregnant, that they're happy to refer in. So you're still able to help all of these people. You're still able to compete when someone's just like basically looking for a chiropractor. But if you become known for something, which isn't that hard to do locally, if you become known for something, then you start to separate yourself from the mass of other chiropractors. And it all starts with sharing your expertise, via content. making sure that people know what it is that you want to be known for.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much incredible data around that, Nick. And one of the first steps that we help with practices is knowing these two really important numbers. And I'm going to give them to your audience so that they can start tracking these. You don't have to have our software to track these. You just need to know them. And the first one is, what is a new patient worth to your practice? Now, it's different than just a care plan value. Like if you say my average care plan value is $3,000, that's different than factoring in all the conversion metrics, because new patient show rate plays into this. As you mentioned, your day 2 show rate, your case acceptance rate, that all factors into it. So BlueIQ runs this algorithm so that we can see, based upon those conversion metrics, what is the real value of a new patient. Any patient that shows up in your practice, you can average this amount of money. Well, I was working with a doctor that we ran that analysis, this first metric, and it was coming in as $927 was the value for a new patient coming into a practice on average, right? And he's like, oh, that can't be right. I know we're collecting more than that per patient. And so we went through the conversion metrics and we came up with the exact same number based upon a really low new patient show rate, a really low day 2 conversion, a really mediocre, right, conversion into starts. And it was accurate, $927. So then we ran the second most important number when we look at this attraction mechanism of the flywheel. And that is his new patient acquisition cost. So when we ran the algorithm, it was costing him on average $413 to acquire that new patient, and was only worth $900 and something. Yeah. Now, none of us can afford a 50% customer or patient acquisition cost. It's a broken mechanism. Yeah. So he kept working harder. He kept shelling out money to big media companies and just thought they needed, it's easy to write a check. It's hard to get really to do that work to bring that new patient acquisition cost where it should be to get healthy. Actually, that's not even the accurate statement. It's not that it's hard. He just didn't have his numbers in place to recognize where the problem was. Mm-hmm. So again, they showed up to the event last year and oh my goodness, Nick, they were doing $50,000 a year. Not a bad, considered successful. But just by recognizing that and starting to fix the flywheel, starting to focus on those pieces and starting at the top, starting at attracting the right, valued new patients, knew what they were good at. And instead of saying, hey, we're getting plenty of new patients, they started getting really focused on getting more of the new patients, of the high value new patients, and then fix that attraction mechanism that, like you just said, know you, like you, trust you before they walk into the practice. Mm-hmm. His conversion metrics skyrocketed. Yeah. And they did 1.38, 1.5 from going from 650. And every single time this happens, these docs are just like, oh my gosh, why didn't I learn this 10 years ago? Why didn't I learn this 15 years ago? Yeah. Well, the reality is a lot of us know we should be running our practice by the numbers. Yeah. It's just they're spending too much work in spreadsheets and fragmented data. There's no perception of their conversion analytics from Google Analytics, Facebook, analytics, their practice data that's hidden, buried underneath reports and numbers. So it's pretty amazing when we free up that data into dashboards with BlueIQ, and those dashboards now connect their team to their daily work, and they can fix the broken mechanisms.
That's great. I love the understanding what the patient is worth and understanding what that acquisition cost is, because what I normally see is kind of the opposite of what you're talking about, in that they're a lot of the successful practices that I'll talk to, their average patient value is like $3,000-$4,000, but they are terrified to spend $100, $150, $200 to acquire a new patient.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're putting $1 in and getting $10, $20, $30 back.
Yeah.
You've got to get more aggressive with your spend. Like as chiropractors, we get so addicted to this idea of go do a $500 booth at a home show and get 20 new patients out of it, and 15 of them end up showing up and 10 of them sign up for care, and it ends up being $30,000 for a $500 ad spend in an afternoon.
Yeah.
You want to, the internet is basically the 24/7 home show. You have all of these channels that allow you to attract the people that you're wanting to attract. And as long as you know what you're looking at in terms of customer acquisition costs, and you know what your patient value is, you know what you can go up to and be comfortable with.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But until you know those numbers, it is like whenever I not every time, but I would say 75% of the time that I ask people those questions, they have no idea. They are just guessing, or they just say whatever their first care plan is worth.
Yeah.
And so,
well, and this is why I love your expertise, because you are so good at coming in and helping them see those numbers and then put the strategy in place to fix those numbers. I mean, that's you are the IQ of BlueIQ. That's what's so beautiful about this.
That's going to be my new tagline. Whenever
I'm going to get you a t-shirt. That's perfect. So here's the thought process. You have experts like Nick who know how to fix your broken flywheels, but a lot of these doctors are just living in a state of unawareness. It's like a patient walking around with back pain and thinking that that's normal. Oh, you own a chiropractic practice? Yeah, it's painful. Like you can't go on vacation. Or they're too scared to get the mechanism in place because it's going to mean I have to hire more employees. And 2 is enough. I only want to manage 2 employees. Mm-hmm. Well, if you're managing your team, that's part of the problem, but we won't dive into that. You need to be leading your team. Right. So if you are going to hire an agency, you're going to be 10 times more effective with your decisions and strategy, and you're going to trust the agency more if you're all on the same page, looking at the data, making data-driven decisions, because it's just math. It's literally just math.
Yeah. I also think when people hire agencies, that they need to be clear about what they want and what is being provided. I think sometimes chiropractors go into looking for these agencies and they are thinking that they're going to be an all-encompassing digital marketing solution. And the agencies over here are like, I'm just going to run a $21 innovation ad on Facebook for you. This is not going to solve all of your problems. Yeah. Sometimes there's a little bit of disconnect there. But I feel like this second tip really focused on understanding your metrics around your new patient acquisition and what that patient is worth in the long run. The first tip was really around like those conversion metrics. Are they making it to this point, then this point, then this point? And if not, how do we fix it?
Yeah.
For this third tip, what's a good example of something that you really see being a game changer for people that focuses on that retention and refer piece that you talked about?
Yeah, perfect. So one of the big things we try to create this habit in our practices that use BlueIQ is called leading. There's a difference between leading metrics and lag metrics. And most practices are running their practices on their lag metrics. Lag metrics are collections, completed office visits, completed new patient appointments. Like those are all lags. Mm-hmm. Lead metrics are what can you do today or in the future that if those are healthy, the lag metrics will be healthy. Right. So if we're going to get the mechanism, the flywheel spinning, And we want to retain a patient. Well, you and I both know that we've got to deliver on the fulfillment of the care plan with like exceeding expectations, like the patient's blown away at the care, which I believe most of us are doing a great job on that. We just have to communicate it better.
Right.
Where do you start in the relationship educating the patient on what lifestyle health looks like? Like, we've got them out of pain, they can start thinking clearer. And what do they need to change in their life to not return back to where we started? So the flywheel is the mechanism in the practice, but it's something we're trying to elevate a patient and making it super easy. In fact, we're going to show you at the IQ Accelerator Summit one of your most powerful levers that you can do to generate new patients without spending any more dollars. This helps balance your new patient acquisition cost by driving referrals. And with today's technology, what you could be doing that replaces some of the old systems, right? You and I, back in the day, we were doing like holiday mailers. We were doing these internal referral programs where a patient was filling out people's information. It's a different world we live in. And there's so much new technology that we can use and amazingly track through BlueIQ, the traffic, the conversion, and again, getting that mechanism in place to convert patients from their crisis care plan. Like, we have them out of pain, they're feeling great. Now we move them into a membership program, or we move them into a lifestyle program, and their ability to refer back to you, we make it so easy and so seamless. And that refeeds the flywheel.
Yeah. And drives down that acquisition cost and increases those show rate numbers. And I think that's really how that flywheel, just with these three ideas that we talked about, have really start to feed on one another.
Yeah.
So let's talk about BlueIQ a little bit. And what do you think the three best tools or metrics, or like, what are the three things that BlueIQ does to help feed that flywheel?
Yeah, I love that. Well, with anything, we want to save you time. We want to help you be more profitable. That's really the main mechanism of why I wanted to build this. Could you do everything BlueIQ does on spreadsheets and pulling reports? Maybe. I mean, we built some pretty amazing algorithms that just are amazing. But in that process, knowing your numbers so that you can diagnose your practice clearly, connecting the team to the data that they generate, and then giving them daily workflows. We have found in each role of the practice that they complete these few tasks on a regular basis, it automatically drives the flywheel growth cycle. Yeah. And that's one of the most powerful things that happens when somebody puts BlueIQ in. And we have this concept of revenue opportunities that we're constantly reviewing with the practice and helping them. Because remember the early days where you'd wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh, John Smith, what happened to him? He was such a great patient. I haven't seen him for like a year. Right. and patients are slipping through, and you're looking at your accounts receivables. You're like, oh my gosh, why is my accounts receivable so high? Is any of this, if I only collected 10% of that, that would be a major boost to my practice. Right. So there's just little levers that if you fix the lead issue rather than focusing on the lag issue, BlueIQ will just naturally help your team drive that growth. And we had a practice again that was in practice for 25 years. And Dr. Rob was literally ready to sell his practice, be done, just wanted out. But his practice wasn't worth what he thought it was. Mm-hmm. He'd put his heart and soul in it for 25 years. And so without adding a single new team member, just putting BlueIQ into place and helping each team member know where to focus their time and energy each day. Not only did we save his team between 4 and 8 hours a week, they doubled their growth. in 6 months, just focusing on each one of those pieces. So he was able to sell his practice for what he knew it was worth instead of getting kicked in the gut. And, very happy story when you apply those principles.
After 25 years to be able to hyper growth in 6 months is tough to do, because it's tough to break those bad habits. So, I really like that BlueIQ does break it down to the daily workflow. Because what I find when you bonus things at like the monthly or the quarterly level, it's like things just kind of happen, and then you either hit it or you didn't. But it's hard to like tell a front desk person that they have all this control over like some quarterly collection number, right? But if they are focused on what are the things that they're responsible for, and the doctors are doing things, and whatever staff members you have in place, that they're focused on what they need to be focused on a daily level, then they feel like they have some control over that. And if it's, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, if every day they're hitting those marks, that those monthly and the quarterly numbers, like you said, are going to take care of themselves.
Yeah, we have this conversation with our patients all the time, right? Yeah. They want to lose weight. They want to, get in better shape. So imagine if I was your patient, I went to the gym, I did the workout you gave me, I ate what you told me to eat, and I ran home and looked in the mirror.
Not right.
I'm going to be sorely disappointed every day.
Yeah.
But man, when you start to see the difference between, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and if you are disciplined to do those small things every day, that's what I tell our teams that are implementing this. I'm like, hey, today and tomorrow, you may not see a massive change, but you put a week together, the perfect week where you execute, the 4 of those together for a perfect month, 3 of those together for a perfect quarter. Oh my gosh. I just met with a doc who last year was averaging $32,000 a month collections. In 90 days, his now 90-day average is $42,000.
That's great.
So a $10,000 a month on average increase in 90 days. So imagine where that's going to go over the next 90 days and the next 90 days.
And I'm sure anybody that runs a practice that is listening to that story probably instantly thinks what I do, which is at 32,000, he was probably profitable. Like he was able to pay himself, $150,000 out of that. Just going from 32 to 42, he probably didn't have to add any team members. There really are no added expenses. That 10,000, 90% of it, if not more, is going to go to him. He's a single doctor. Yeah. And so that's where breaking through those barriers, because most of us have kind of like gotten to some plateau and we've figured out how to be profitable at that plateau. Yeah. When you can break through that, there usually is not a lot of added cost in doing that in the first 10,000, the first 20,000. Maybe you have to add some team members when you're doubling your doctor. But for that first 90 days to 6 months of growth, that's just added in. And again, Pavlov's dog, when you start at the end of the month looking at it and you're like, wow, instead of making 12,000 this month, they made 26,000. That's a pretty strong ding of the bell.
It's so fun. And again, it unlocks what we call growth levers. And so if you start to understand how to build that flywheel, you'll know where to put that money. You'll know how to turn that extra 10,000 into 20, the 20 into 40.
Yeah.
And that's what this IQ Accelerator live event is all about.
Yeah.
It's helping them work smarter, not harder, how to know that new patient acquisition cost and start driving that down while they drive their new patient schedules up. And then how to not change the marketing budget. Like the marketing budget becomes more effective, so it naturally leads to growth. And it was pretty cool. We showed him in the algorithm, that same doc that unlocked 42,000. We showed him in the algorithm how if he maintained his marketing budget, but increased his conversion rates and his effectiveness, that between 6 and 8 months, he would be at 111,000. Now, you're going to have to add some team, and you want to use some of that to reward team, right?
Sure.
But you have to have proper incentive programs in. You have to have proper mechanisms in place. And now he's very clear on how to do that, because that's the IQ of BlueIQ.
That's great. Well, just to be clear, you do not have to be a BlueIQ customer to go to the IQ Accelerator live event.
You're spot on. In fact, we have an unbelievable, this ticket, this is like the golden ticket, Nick. It's crazy. And not only are they going to walk away from this event with their 2022 calendar built out, so that you go home literally just now executing, you and your team. This is why we want your team there, because they're going to help build this. We don't want you to go home and have to now convince the team to build this piece of the flywheel. We want to build it for you at this event. So you're building out your calendar, you're getting marketing pieces in place. Nick's going to show you content that you're going to be putting on your calendar to create. You're going to understand digital ads management. You're going to understand how to build yourself as an expert in your area and still build your membership model so you can take care of everybody. You're going to get all of these assets, and we are giving you, if you don't have BlueIQ, we're literally giving you a premium account between now and the event. So if you buy your ticket today, you get BlueIQ today, and you can start using it, going through our onboarding process. All of that's included in the price of the ticket, and you can immediately start crushing your growth.
That's great. So there are a few different options. There's the in-person ticket if you are an individual, like just the individual doctor wants to come. There's a virtual ticket, and then there's an in-person plus 3 team members. So if you can walk through the pricing on those. What or want them to go to the landing page?
Yeah, so I'm happy to just tell you here too. So when you buy this ticket, everything that we're bringing here for you is a total package value of $15,000. So we unlock that for you in your ticket by all of these things that you're going to be getting. And at the event, we're going to feed you and your teams. There's going to be breakout sessions. It's being in person is going to be pretty spectacular. And it's in Vegas in the spring at the Red Rock Hotel. So you're not kind of distracted by the strip.
but I will still teach you how to play craps if you want.
Yeah.
Part of the VIP package.
That's right. So a single doc can come for $497. The tickets are normally $1997. For the next few days, you have the opportunity to get that ticket for $1997, for $497 for you as the practice owner, or we really want you to bring your team. So we made a sweet deal at $997 to bring your team. And that includes their food and their supplies and some swag. We also do have a virtual option. If you just can't make it out to Vegas, you can get that ticket for $997. That's just a flat 50% off right now. And that way you can still attend. But I'm telling you, man, in live, getting to hang out with Nick, holy cow, I'd pay $2,000 just for that.
So the dates are April 29th and April 30th, and those are full day events, correct?
That's correct. 9 to 5. 9 to 5.
9 to 5. And at the Red Rock in Las Vegas, and the landing page for that, and we'll put this in the show notes, is yourpracticeevolution.com. So that's yourpracticeevolution.com/summit. And that will take you to all the information that you need about how to purchase tickets and, kind of what it's all about. It's got some doctors on there that went last year that have been very successful that you talked about in this chat. And anything else, Cory, that we didn't cover? The speakers, there's a bunch of good speakers. Jay Greenstein, Dr. Fab, Bo Pierce, Brandy Kinnear, Mike, I can never say his last name. He's with Lead Juice. A lot of smart people that are going to be on stage for this one.
And I want to make it clear to everybody, this is not a pitch fest. Like, you're not coming to this to be vended to death. You're coming to gain IQ. Like your speakers, like Nick is coming to literally drop gold on you. So you're walking away with value. And that's why we charge the price that we charge. It's not, there's two mechanisms, right? Just like your practice, you can give low ticket price, but you still got to cover the expense of the event on the back end by vendors who want to sell to you and all of that. Yeah. Or you pay and then we deliver and you go home and your growth goes through the roof and you want to come back next year. So that's why we're so focused on delivering quality content for you. And,
this is not a support session on like how to set up your BlueIQ. This is how to grow your practice.
Yeah. And
a lot of it is here's how BlueIQ makes that easier.
Yeah, we'll show you how to use the BlueIQ to track this specific part of it, but we're literally building the pieces to put into your flywheel so you go home with it done. This is not teasing you with, here's what's wrong, now sign up for my program so you can fix it. That's not what this is. This is literally fixing it this weekend so you can now go home and 2022 becomes the most profitable year you've ever had.
That's awesome. And I think this is going to be such a year for growth, things getting back to normal and there's just going to be so much opportunity out there, in-person events. Everyone is so much more online and comfortable with being online and comfortable with using digital tools. I mean, whoever thought that QR codes would make a comeback? So there's so many opportunities from pre-COVID that are going to come back this year. And then so many opportunities that have been created in the last couple of years that if you're able to blend those together and add those to the flywheel, I think you're going to be very happy. So just as a reminder, IQ Accelerator Ignite Live, April 29th and 30th at Red Rock in Las Vegas. I'll be there. Cory will be there. Everybody that's cool is going to be there. So make sure you get your ticket.
Can't wait to see you guys in person.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, I appreciate your time, and we will see you guys on the next one.
Thanks, brother.